Shalom, my friends. Right now, as you watch this video, there are millions of Americans drowning in credit card debt, working two jobs and still barely making ends meet, watching their bank accounts drain month after month while anxiety keeps them awake at night. The financial pressure has become so crushing that 78% of Americans are living paycheck to paycheck, and the stress is destroying relationships, health, and hope. You've tried budgeting apps, side hustles, and financial advice from every corner of the internet, but nothing seems to break the cycle, because nobody has taught you the ancient secret that prosperity isn't about what you do, it's about who you become. What if I told you that over 3,000 years ago, the Torah encoded a divine blueprint for financial transformation that addresses the root cause of poverty that modern financial advisors completely miss? This isn't about religious rules or outdated traditions. This is about understanding the spiritual architecture of prosperity that the wealthiest families have quietly practiced for centuries while the rest of the world chases superficial money strategies. The ancient Jewish sages discovered something that neuroscience is only now confirming. Your financial reality is a direct reflection of your internal posture, your character structure, and the spiritual frequency you operate from. In the next few minutes, I'm going to reveal the Torah's wise posture code, 6 transformational principles that will completely shift how you relate to money, abundance, and prosperity. This isn't theory. This is the exact framework that has helped Jewish communities not only survive, but thrive through thousands of years of persecution, exile, and economic uncertainty. By the end of this video, you'll understand why your financial struggles aren't about lack of opportunity or bad luck. They're about an internal posture that can be completely rewired using ancient wisdom. Stay with me, because what you're about to learn will challenge everything you thought you knew about wealth. The Torah teaches us through the story of Jacob's transformation that prosperity begins with internal alignment, not external manipulation. When Jacob wrestled with the angel at Peniel, he wasn't just fighting a supernatural being, he was confronting his own shadow, his deceptive nature, his scarcity mindset. The angel changed his name from Jacob, meaning heel grabber, or deceiver, to Israel, meaning one who wrestles with God and prevails, marking a fundamental identity shift. This wasn't just a name change, it was a character transformation that preceded his material prosperity. After this encounter, Jacob went from running and hiding to confidently facing Esau with abundance, herds, and blessings. The Torah is showing us that who you are determines what you attract. In modern America, we see this principle violated daily. People try to manipulate their external circumstances through aggressive hustling, debt-fueled consumption, and get-rich-quick schemes, while their internal world remains chaotic, fearful, and misaligned. The Torah teaches in Proverbs 23:7, "As a man thinks in his heart, so is he." Your subconscious beliefs, your self-image, and your spiritual posture are broadcasting a frequency that the universe responds to. If internally you're operating from poverty consciousness, unworthiness, and desperation, no amount of external action will create lasting wealth. This is why lottery winners often end up broke. Their internal posture never shifted to match their external windfall. The Jewish concept of tikkun, rectification, teaches that before you can repair your finances, you must repair your soul. This means addressing the shame, unworthiness, resentment, and fear that live in your subconscious mind. The Torah gives us daily practices like prayer, meditation on divine abundance, and gratitude rituals that rewire our internal operating system. When you begin each day acknowledging Modeh Ani, thanking God for returning your soul and giving you another day, you're establishing a posture of gratitude rather than scarcity. This internal shift creates what the Kabbalists call vessels that can receive abundance. Your current financial lack isn't punishment, it's feedback that your internal posture needs elevation. One of the most revolutionary concepts in Torah wisdom is the idea that you don't actually own anything. You're a steward of God's resources temporarily placed in your care. Deuteronomy 8:18 explicitly states, "Remember the Lord your God, for it is He who gives you the ability to produce wealth." This completely inverts the American dream mythology of self-made success and rugged individualism. The moment you believe, "I built this" or "I earned this," you've disconnected from the source of all prosperity and entered a dangerous state of pride that the Torah warns leads to downfall. The wise posture is recognizing that every dollar, every opportunity, every talent is a divine loan that you're meant to steward wisely. This stewardship mindset radically changes your relationship with money. When you see yourself as a manager of God's resources rather than an owner desperately clinging to your money, several things happen. First, generosity becomes natural because you're not giving away your money. You're circulating God's abundance. Second, the pressure and anxiety decrease because the ultimate responsibility isn't on you. You're partnering with the divine. Third, you make wiser decisions because you're accountable to a higher authority. The Torah's laws about tithing, leaving corners of fields for the poor, and the sabbatical year all train this stewardship consciousness. These aren't arbitrary rules. They're spiritual technologies that keep you in a posture of flow rather than hoarding. In the American context, we see the opposite. Massive consumer debt, retirement account anxiety, and desperate clinging to resources out of fear. The average American household carries over $103,000 in debt because we've been taught to leverage, consume, and own, rather than steward, circulate, and trust. The Torah's stewardship principle teaches that when you hold resources with an open hand, giving freely, investing in kingdom purposes, supporting the poor, you create a vacuum that the divine fills. Malachi 3:10 challenges us to test this. "Bring the whole tithe into the storehouse, and see if I will not throw open the floodgates of heaven and pour out so much blessing that there will not be room enough to store it." This isn't magical thinking, it's spiritual physics. Your posture of stewardship activates divine provision. The Torah places extraordinary emphasis on honest weights and measures, fair business dealings, and keeping your word, because in the divine economy, integrity is the foundation of all prosperity. Leviticus 19:36 commands, "Use honest scales and honest weights, an honest ephah and an honest hin." The rabbis teach that the first question God asks when you stand before Him isn't about prayer or Torah study. It's, did you conduct your business with integrity? Why? Because how you handle money reveals your true character, and character is the ultimate currency in God's kingdom. A person with integrity may start with little, but they build on a foundation that supports unlimited growth. A person without integrity may gain the whole world, but it's built on sand that will eventually collapse. In modern America, we're experiencing a crisis of integrity that directly correlates with our financial anxiety. The 2008 financial collapse was fundamentally a crisis of character. Predatory lending, fraudulent ratings, and systemic dishonesty that destroyed millions of families. On a personal level, when you cut corners, manipulate others, withhold honest communication, or compromise your values for financial gain, you're undermining the very foundation that could support your prosperity. The Torah teaches that stolen bread never truly nourishes, and wealth gained through dishonesty becomes a curse rather than a blessing. You might temporarily gain through deception, but you'll lose it, and more, because you've violated the spiritual laws that govern abundance. The wise posture is understanding that your character is your most valuable asset, and protecting it is more important than any financial gain. This means being scrupulously honest in all dealings, even when it costs you short-term. It means keeping promises, delivering quality, and treating every person, regardless of their status, with dignity and fairness. The Jewish concept of Kiddush Hashem, sanctifying God's name, teaches that your integrity in business is a form of worship that attracts divine blessing. When people can trust you completely, when your word is your bond, when you consistently operate with transparency and fairness, you become a conduit for God's abundance. The market responds to integrity with loyalty, referrals, and opportunities that no marketing can buy. Your posture of unwavering integrity becomes magnetic to prosperity. Proverbs 4:7 declares, "Wisdom is supreme, therefore get wisdom. Though it cost all you have, get understanding." In the Torah's framework, wisdom is the highest form of wealth because it's the only asset that can never be stolen, never depreciates, and multiplies everything else you possess. The Jewish emphasis on education, Torah study, and intellectual development isn't just cultural tradition. It's recognition that your mind is your primary wealth-generating tool. When you invest in expanding your understanding, developing skills, and cultivating discernment, you're building internal capital that produces external returns exponentially. This is why Jewish communities have historically produced disproportionate numbers of doctors, lawyers, scientists, and entrepreneurs. The posture of prioritizing wisdom over immediate consumption creates generational wealth. In the American context, we see the tragic opposite: massive student loan debt for degrees that provide little practical value, while simultaneously a cultural devaluation of actual wisdom and discernment. People spend thousands on entertainment, luxury goods, and status symbols, while refusing to invest in books, courses, mentorship, and education that could transform their earning capacity. The Torah teaches that true wisdom goes beyond mere information. It's the ability to discern God's will, understand human nature, recognize opportunities, and make decisions aligned with divine principles. This is why Solomon, when offered anything by God, chose wisdom, and as a result, received wealth, honor, and peace as well. Wisdom is the master key that unlocks all other treasures. The wise posture is becoming a perpetual student, constantly investing in your intellectual and spiritual development. This means dedicating time daily to studying Torah, reading books by successful people, learning from mentors, and developing practical skills that increase your value in the marketplace. The Talmud teaches that an ignorant person cannot be truly pious, because without wisdom, you lack the discernment to navigate life's complexities righteously. Every dollar you invest in legitimate education, every hour you spend in focused study, every relationship with someone wiser than you is compounding interest in your wealth-generating capacity. The Torah's emphasis on teaching children diligently, Deuteronomy 6:27, and meditating on wisdom day and night creates a posture where you're constantly upgrading your internal operating system. Your mind, properly developed, becomes an asset that produces abundance automatically. The agricultural imagery throughout Torah, planting, watering, growing seasons, harvest, teaches a fundamental principle that modern America has completely forgotten. Prosperity has a gestation period. Ecclesiastes 3:1 reminds us, "There is a time for everything, and a season for every activity under the heavens." The Torah's agricultural laws, including the sabbatical year where fields lie fallow, teach that forcing growth outside of natural rhythms leads to depletion and eventual collapse. The wise farmer doesn't pull on seedlings to make them grow faster. He waters, tends, and waits for the harvest. Similarly, your financial transformation follows organic growth patterns that cannot be rushed without damaging the fruit. American culture's obsession with instant gratification, overnight success stories, get-rich-quick schemes, crypto gambling, and debt-fueled instant wealth violates this divine principle of organic growth. The average American wants the harvest without planting seeds, the reward without the process, the fruit without the root system. This is why 90% of day traders lose money, why most lottery winners end up broke, and why debt has become the American way. We refuse to honor the patience principle. The Torah teaches through Joseph's story that 7 years of abundance followed by 7 years of famine is the natural rhythm of economics. Joseph's wisdom was storing during plenty to survive during scarcity, demonstrating a long-term posture that contradicts our short-term desperation. The wise posture is understanding that every seed you plant, whether it's education, relationships, character development, or business building, has a natural germination period before it produces visible results. This requires faith to continue working when you don't see immediate returns, discipline to delay gratification, and trust in divine timing. The Talmud teaches that 40 days before a child is born, a heavenly voice announces whose daughter or son they will marry, meaning God's provision is already planned before you even recognize the need. Your job isn't to panic and force outcomes. It's to faithfully plant seeds, water consistently, and trust the harvest will come in its appointed season. When you adopt this patient posture, you make completely different decisions. You invest rather than consume. You build rather than borrow. You develop rather than demand. This patience isn't passive waiting. It's active trust that positions you to receive when the season changes. Perhaps the most counterintuitive principle in Torah wisdom is that giving is the mechanism for receiving. Proverbs 11:24-25 states, "One person gives freely, yet gains even more. Another withholds unduly, but comes to poverty. A generous person will prosper. Whoever refreshes others will be refreshed." This isn't karma or positive thinking. It's spiritual physics. The Hebrew word for giving, natan, is a palindrome, reading the same forward and backward, teaching that what you send out comes back to you. The Torah's mandatory tithes, offerings, and charity laws aren't designed to extract resources from you. They're technologies that keep abundance flowing through you rather than stagnating in you. Water that stops flowing becomes stagnant and toxic. Money that stops circulating becomes a curse rather than a blessing. In the American economy, we see the catastrophic results of hoarding, greed, and the accumulation mindset. The wealthiest individuals and corporations hoard trillions, while poverty devastates communities, creating economic stagnation that eventually collapses the entire system. On a personal level, when you operate from scarcity, refusing to tip properly, neglecting charitable giving, hoarding every penny, you're creating an energetic blockage that prevents new resources from flowing to you. The Torah teaches that when you give your first fruits, the first 10% of increase, you're establishing a covenant that guarantees God's provision. This isn't about manipulation. It's about aligning with how divine abundance operates. Generosity creates a vacuum that draws resources toward you. The wise posture is viewing yourself as a conduit rather than a container for resources. This means developing reflexive generosity, tipping generously, supporting worthy causes immediately when prompted, helping others without expecting return, and tithing consistently before any other expenses. The Jewish practice of tzedakah, righteous giving, isn't optional charity. It's an obligation that establishes justice and keeps abundance flowing. When you consistently give from a place of faith rather than fear, several things happen. First, you're proving to your subconscious that you trust in divine provision. Second, you're creating space for new resources by releasing attachment. Third, you're sowing seeds that will return multiplied. Fourth, you're partnering with God's primary activity, which is giving. The most financially free people aren't those who accumulate the most, they're those who circulate the most. Your posture of radical generosity becomes the very mechanism that ensures you always have enough to give. My friends, if you've stayed with me this far, you've just received what most people search their entire lives for, the ancient code that unlocks lasting prosperity. But here's what you must understand. This isn't information to collect. It's transformation to implement. The Torah's wisdom about financial abundance isn't meant to sit in your head as interesting concepts. It's meant to be lived daily until these 6 principles become your automatic posture. Every morning when you wake up and choose gratitude over anxiety, stewardship over ownership, integrity over compromise, wisdom over ignorance, patience over desperation, and generosity over hoarding, you're literally rewiring your spiritual DNA to receive what God has already prepared for you. The question isn't whether these principles work. History has proven they do. The question is whether you will actually become the person these principles require. I want you to understand something critical. Your current financial situation is not your destiny. It's simply feedback about your current posture. The beautiful news is that posture can be changed starting right now, this very moment. You don't need a different economy, a better job market, or more luck. You need a different internal state that these 6 Torah principles create. When you shift from ownership to stewardship, you release financial anxiety. When you prioritize integrity over immediate gain, you build unshakable foundations. When you invest in wisdom, you multiply your capacity. When you practice patience, you position yourself for the right opportunities. When you give generously, you prove you trust the divine source. These aren't religious rules. They're the spiritual physics that govern how abundance flows in this universe, and they work whether you believe in them or not. So here's my challenge to you. For the next 30 days, choose one of these 6 principles and practice it radically. If it's stewardship, thank God every morning for every resource you handle that day. If it's integrity, make one difficult, honest decision you've been avoiding. If it's wisdom, invest in one course or book that will expand your capacity. If it's patience, identify one seed you're planting and commit to watering it without demanding immediate results. If it's generosity, give something significant that stretches your faith. Watch what happens. Subscribe to this channel because we're going to go deeper into each of these principles with practical applications, biblical stories, and modern examples. Comment below which principle resonates most with you and why. Share this video with someone who needs to hear that their financial breakthrough isn't about doing more. It's about becoming more. Shalom, my friends. Remember, who you are becoming determines what you will receive. The question is, who are you choosing to become today?